Some say Dear Esther is a game all about a pigeon with legs. And if video games were considered to be art, then Dear Esther would have been painted by Vincent van Gogh. Or maybe Dear Esther is just a walking sim which got a little bit too artsy to make sense. Well, I'm going to find out. Let's get into it. Dear Esther starts on what looks like a typical British coastline, grey, windy, and narrated by Nigel Carrington. The narrator starts by reading out a letter addressed to Esther about his distress that he doesn't have any seagulls to feed chips to. There's even a biblical reference added to the letter for effect. Upon exploring this simulator for an island in Scotland, you find an abandoned lighthouse. The setting is eerie, lonely. We've added chemistry graffiti just to make you feel that bit more uneasy. As you explore this barren land like a teenager lost at a festival, you find more and more clues as to what happened the night before. All the while, Nigel pops up with segments from his letter to Esther. These pieces of dialogue are intriguing and very well written, as well as expertly narrated by Mr. Carrington. I found myself feeling calm whilst playing Dear Esther, exploring with intrigue and anticipating the next extract to see if I could piece together what the reason was for me wandering around this all familiar setting and what my objective was in this game.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
Something that really caught my attention about Dear Esther is how the sound effects used were very realistic, to the point where I had to check that this wasn't based on my family holidays as a kid. Apparently it isn't. The wind effects, accompanied with the waves crashing against the rocks, really added to the experience, making it engaging as well as calming. The dialogue that is narrated throughout the game is very articulate and tells a troubling story between 5 characters, including the narrator. These pieces of the story can appear in certain areas of the sandbox. However, some of these extracts, as well as the scenery assets, are randomised, meaning you have a different experience than another player. The dialogue is used to give the player the tools to imagine the story when accompanied with the scenery, instead of outright showing a player flashbacks, similar to the way you can interpret a book differently to another person.
The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial.
Dear Esther starts to get stranger as you progress through the sandbox, when you find more and more of these chemical formulas sprayed on the walls by a Marie Curie inspired Banksy. These are all references to different elements of the story, but unless you have a chemical mind, then like me, you probably think they're just alien hieroglyphics. All of these clues and dialogue extracts do lead up to a crescendo at the end of Dear Esther, which I won't spoil for you, but it did leave me asking more questions than giving me answers to what I just experienced. When you first start playing Dear Esther, the story and setting keep the game interesting as well as intriguing. However, it is not a game that will give you a sense of achievement or purpose. To add to this, the gameplay is essentially walking without much interaction or choice, which can become a bit tedious if you get stuck or you're not sure where to go next. Dear Esther, for all intensive purposes, is what you make it. This is down to the way the game has been set up, with the dialogue being the driving factor, so as you the player can use your imagination with the help of the scenery and level design. In this sense, it's very similar to reading a book, as you use your imagination, which will take you to a different place to somebody else's. If you're looking for a calming experience accompanied by some great voiceover work, then I'd recommend this highly, as that's exactly what it does well. Yes, it is a bit artsy sometimes, and I can see why it's not everyone's cup of tea. However, this game is a very peaceful change from the norm, even if it is a bit odd at times. If you decide to pick up Dear Esther, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Did you agree with me, or did you not like it? Let me know, either way, I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one.